It's the music business, but it is a business. And, just like you wouldn't want to buy a home without making sure that you inspected the roof and the heater and the boiler to make sure everything was working properly before you plunk down a bunch of money. It's no different in the music business. You have to understand who you're getting into business with and the terms of the deal and what's standard and what's not, and what the asks and what the gives are, and whether or not that makes sense for you and where you want to be and how that's going to help you. And the other thing people don't understand is that it's okay to say no thank you in our business. You don't have to take the first deal that comes along. It might be the only deal comes along, but it might not be a good deal.
Arkatech Beatz.
Today we have legendary, and I say legendary entertainment attorney, Bernard Resnick, Esquire. I like to call him Bernie. Everybody calls him Bernie. His friends call him Bernie.
Bernie the attorney.
Bernie the attorney. And for those who don't know, Bernie Resnick, he is basically responsible for over 100 gold, platinum, multi-platinum, Billboard #1s, with representing sales over 170 million records. And, I just wanted to welcome him to the show on the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast.
It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I wish you the very best with this event that you're doing, this podcast.
I appreciate it, Bernie, and I really appreciate everything that you've done for us. And and like you just said, our relationship has spanned 2 decades, right? And we've been in this music business for a long time, and you've been able to help us, navigate through some of the most complex deals. And I wanted to bring you on the platform just so that you can, just to share that with our viewers, and just get some information, really telling people about, the music business, what we expect to happen as far as the industry, things that are changing, so forth and so on. But I wanted to ask you first, what was your original career path for those who may not know? I know, because for me, I know that you're a musician turned attorney, but I want the guests to kind of get a little bit of backdrop on that and what made you do what you did in terms of making that change.
As you can see behind me, those are my instruments. I'm a classically trained bass player, double bassist, and I was trained by Henry Scott, one of the first major symphony United States players who was African-American, that joined the Philadelphia Orchestra in the early 1970s and played in the orchestra for 42 years. And so he trained me how to play. And I came to a crossroads in my life very young. I was about 18 years old, deciding, should I become a professional classical musician, playing a symphony orchestra like my maestro, or should I stay in school? And I decided to stay in school to help artists rather than to be the artist, for a number of reasons. One of which is I didn't want to have to work every Saturday night for the rest of my life. And the other was that I thought if I become a professional musician, I could end up with 3 children by 3 different women and have a drug problem all before I'm 30 years old. And I said, I have a head for business. Let me just help people that are in the business rather than do that as my main thing. So I decided to go into being a lawyer to help musicians and artists. And now I still play. I've been in a symphony orchestra for 40 years, and I still do sessions playing rock or jazz or whatever. But now for me, the music is more of a fun thing where I can relax and forget about the troubles of the day. But I never forgot being a musician. I still do it, pretty regularly, semi-professionally.
That's a great situation. So when you were deciding to make the switch, and you said, okay, you wanted to help musicians.
Yeah.
What were you seeing during that time that really kind of gave you that itch to do that change?
Well, I love to read. Nobody goes to law school without being a bookworm. And I read a lot, and I was reading a lot, not just about history and not just about fiction, but I also read about entertainment industry. I was reading about the great moguls and creators of our industry in Hollywood and in the record business. And what I thought was, it doesn't matter whether the artist is an actor, a singer, a dancer, whether the artist is black or white or straight or gay or male or female, they all have one thing in common, which they tend to get taken advantage of by the corporation that they're working for. And I thought, well, gee, that doesn't seem right. And I wanted to help folks who didn't know as much as I did about business. and let them just be artists. And so that was sort of the main motivation behind that.
I get it. And with what I noticed also, like you said, like in, did you see, what I guess I would ask you is that, do you see a difference in between the exploitation that was occurring back then, right, and now? Because it seems like it's almost more prevalent now, even though we have more access to information. So
Yeah,
as
very little
so as
changes.
an so as an attorney, like, why do you think that it's taking so long for people to really, you know, get access to information, and why do you think the industry is still as exploitative as it used to be? It still is.
Well, it's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. And and so, what
It's
we
real.
see is that those who have become successful in, I wouldn't necessarily say exploiting, because a lot of people are in it for the right reasons, who just want to make the art and want to help, get folks' art out there. Not everybody's a bad actor, but there are plenty of them, plenty of charlatans and plenty of posers in our business. But I think that for the most part, the information's out there. It's whether or not the artist chooses to learn that information and apply that information and surround herself or himself with the people that can help them get ahead. That's another horse of another color. And I think that a lot of the people just don't take advantage of the opportunities they have to learn and empower themselves. And I encourage my clients, as I've encouraged you and Mike over the years, to be as knowledgeable as you can about our industry, because knowledge is power. And the more you know, the better a deal you can negotiate for yourself, whether or not you have a lawyer or a manager or a producer or an agent working for you.
And I think that's one of like the key things that we try to drive, is people making sure that everyone has a clear understanding of the type of deal that they want to do and the type of business they want to conduct. And then once they get their attorneys involved, that can only enhance your situation because you have a baseline knowledge of what's going on.
Correct. It's the music business, but it is a business. And, just like you wouldn't want to buy a home without making sure that you inspected the roof and the heater and the boiler to make sure everything was working properly before you plunk down a bunch of money, it's no different in the music business. You have to understand who you're getting into business with and the terms of the deal and what's standard and what's not, and what the asks and what the gives are, and whether or not that makes sense for you and where you want to be and how that's going to help you. And the other thing people don't understand is that it's okay to say no thank you in our business. You don't have to take the first deal that comes along. Right. It might be the only deal comes along, but it might not be a good deal. So it's okay to say no. And it's okay to maintain your independence until the right person and the right opportunity comes along. And people are often so desperate to get any deal that they'll take a bad deal. And, in my world, no deal is better than a bad deal any day of the week.
Right. I totally agree with that. When you see where the industry is going now, right? You're talking about AI jumping into the situation. That's causing like a copyright nightmare for folks.
Yeah.
like what would you say is like now, especially the way deals are being done now, artists are going in, taking the distribution deals, 80/20s, so forth and so on. Like, what is like the biggest red flag that you're seeing in terms of deals for artists happening right now in 2023 going into 2024?
I think that a lot of bad actors are hiding behind the anonymity of the internet. And so, even though it's not exactly brand new, there's so many crooks and untrustworthy people who are trying to get over on each other using the internet that you really need to be careful. And a lot of the deals that people send me, I can tell somebody just grabbed some random contract off of the internet and tried to adapt it themselves and play lawyer for a day or play record label boss for a day and try to create a deal, and they're terrible. And so, there are a lot of folks that hide behind the ability to change your name or mask yourself on the internet. And in my world, you should really get to know the people that you're going into business with. And often people come to me and they say, "What do you think about this contract, Bernie? Should I sign this?" And I say, before you even look at the contract, I'll say, before you pay me a penny to review it or mark it up for you, how well do you know this person who offered you this deal? Have you gone out to have a meal with them and seen how they treat the waiters and the busboys at a restaurant? Are they nice people to hang out with? Are you Are you comfortable being with them in public and seeing how they act and how they conduct themselves? I mean, you really need to get to know somebody before you get into business with somebody. And it's amazing how many times people say back to me, no, I've never met the dude in person, or I don't know what he looks like, or I don't know where he lives or what time zone he's in, or I don't even have his phone number. And I'm like, well, you really shouldn't be getting into business with somebody you don't know. And that's a mistake people make all the time. And I think you need to really, you need to be careful when you're on the internet, because there are many folks who will separate you from your money very quickly. And you need to have a healthy dose of suspicion. Not that everybody's, out to get you, but you just need to have a healthy dose of suspicion to make sure that you're getting into a deal that's legitimate. And also, and let me just say this as a public service announcement, there are lots and lots of folks out there who are just plain scammers. And it's got to be at least 10, 15 times in the last couple of years that potential clients have come to me saying, look, I got this offer for a recording contract from XYZ major record company, and it looks like an offer from XYZ major record company. However, if you look at it carefully, I see there's a misspelling here, or the email address doesn't quite match what I'm used to seeing from Sony or Warner Brothers. And when I investigated further and talked to the legal department at that particular record company, they say, oh, we never heard of such a thing. And it's often, you've been selected, you've won a contest. We think that, we'll give you a couple $100,000. Come sign with us and sign this paper and we'll get you a record deal. And it's always baloney. And so I report it and I tell the major record companies, and they thank me for alerting them, because it's their reputation that's getting trashed as well. So there are many, many, I don't know if you'd call them a phishing scam or a impersonation scam, but there are many impersonators out there pretending to be executives at record companies. So have a healthy dose of caution when you get that kind of email out of the blue. And a deal that looks too good to be true usually is too good to be true. And so be careful about that. And that's a common scam that's going around these days.
Thanks for that. And I hope our listeners are really paying attention, to that. We've seen that a few times where folks were getting emails from, like you said, pseudo or fake industry folks. And, that used to be the big thing. And, folks would be trying to fly places and they're telling you to pay for this and do that. And it was really strange type of situation.
Generally speaking, it's one of these things where they say, we've got 190, it's usually an odd number, 175, 190, $210,000 for you when you sign with us. You just need to come to New York for an audition and pay this advance, or pay this, this administration fee, $350 or $450. And that's what they're trying to get out of people, is the $300 or $400. And if they get enough suckers to do that, and enough foolish people to do that, they do pretty well. And there is no $190,000 record deal. There is nobody on the other side of that. It's some scammer somewhere sitting in a basement in an apartment with a computer trying to swipe your money. And so when I look at it carefully, I can often tell just by reading it the mistakes that the folks have made in the text of the solicitation. Maybe they have a title that doesn't really make sense, that you don't normally hear at a record company, their job title, or maybe the email address isn't quite right, or maybe they're using the name of an executive who I know doesn't work any longer at that company. So it's things like that. But if you know the industry enough, you can pick it up pretty quickly.
And just pivoting a little bit, when we're talking about like some of the changes that are happening online, because you said the internet is becoming a different type of
it's a minefield.
Yeah, it's a different type of place right now. What's your thoughts on, right now with folks using AI, copyright infringement, protecting intellectual property? Like, what's your take on that? And what do you think is happening in terms of 2024? How can artists protect themselves?
Okay, well, first of all, my wife and associate attorney, Sally Madison, talks about AI, and she says, why don't we use AI to replace the boring jobs instead of the fun jobs? So the fun jobs is writing songs and creating music that we should be doing. Let the AI figure out how to sweep the floor or clean the bathroom, or wipe down the kitchen. So, that's my first concern. It's like, people should concentrate on making music and having fun making music rather than letting AI do it for them. the Copyright Office has made a ruling which basically says that they're not going to honor any attempt at a machine trying to own a copyright for something the machine created. So there will be no copyrights registered and issued to any AI company or machine that creates a new work of art. That's number one. They're trying to protect the humans. Number two is just because it's easy and it's fast doesn't mean that it's good, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's original. One of the things that people can do that machines don't know how to do is that people can take A plus B and make it equal F. And machines say A plus B equals C. And so people can think ahead a few steps, and computers can only take what is put into them and create something with that. But humans have the ability to make leaps and to jump further ahead. And so you might hear a new style of music or a new combination of music that would not be something that a computer would have ever considered. And I think that's what we need to always remember, is that people are inherently able to create in ways that are different than how you can teach a machine to create. So I have faith in humans to be more creative than computers any day of the week. Now, there are tons and tons of legal issues with artificial intelligence, many of which are unresolved and will take years to resolve. I don't know whether or not AI will be here for a long time or it will fizzle out. If we had this conversation, Colin, 2 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about AI. We would be talking about 3 different other letters, NFTs, another acronym.
Right.
Remember non-fungible tokens and how big they were in 2020 and 21, and now you don't hear much about them. There were a minefield of legal issues about NFTs, and I was never crazy about them because I was worried about all the different problems that I thought up in my brain that could be created from NFTs down the road a couple of years. And now the bottom has fallen out of that market and they've crashed, and their value is virtually worthless in most circumstances. And a lot of people who went into that and bought it, speculated, or have lost their money, lost their investment. I don't know whether that'll be the case with artificial intelligence. We'll see. I think that most likely artificial intelligence will end up like any other technological advance in the entertainment industry. It'll be a tool in the toolkit, but it won't be the only tool. So, for example, before there were digital recording technologies, there was analog recording. And before there was multi-track analog recording, there was play live in the studio recording. And, recording technology has advanced over the 100 or so years that it's been in existence. And each generation, each 5 to 10 years, there's a new technological advance. I think that AI will be part of that, just like a sampling machine was part of it in the early 1980s. I think it'll be a tool in the toolkit, but I don't think necessarily it'll be the be-all and end-all. I think it's a dangerous tool in the toolkit because in the wrong hands, artificial intelligence, we can all just imagine by thinking about our favorite science fiction movie, what a computer can do to go wrong. Arthur Clarke wrote about that in 2001, A Space Odyssey, half a century ago. So, I think that that artificial intelligence can be dangerous and needs to be controlled in the same way that, Isaac Asimov, the science fiction author, wrote about robots, and he issued the 3 rules of robots. First of all, robots won't kill humans, et cetera. And there were like 3 rules the robots had to follow. And I think we just sort of need the baseline rules like Asimov had about robots for artificial intelligence, and we'll be fine. But if you let it be uncontrolled, then we could end up in a situation like the movie The Terminator, where the humans are battling the machines. And that's everybody's worry.
That's everybody.
We lawyers are all worried about, something that seems like fun and creative and an interesting thing to do suddenly becomes us versus the computers.
Let me formulate this better. Should artists and producers be looking at AI and the way that it can create certain things? Should we be looking more to do more copyright protection for the stuff that that AI may take and incorporate into quote unquote new works? Or like how should artists be looking to really protect themselves in terms of their intellectual property with this stuff?
Certainly artists should avail themselves of the legal protections that are available to them.
Right.
So if you don't know how to do a copyright already, you should learn. It's a simple 2-page form. The notion of what they used to call the poor man's copyright, sending something to yourself in the mail that has no legal value whatsoever. So listen to me when I'm telling you, I'm a lawyer. I've been doing this for 35, 40 years. Don't do that. It's a waste of money and a waste of the postal carrier's time to bring you the document in the mail. Instead, do it the right way. Go to the U.S. Copyright Office. Copyright.gov is the address. It's a really good website. And even though it's the government, it's very user-friendly, believe it or not. It's an easy website to use once you get to know it. And it's a terrific website filled with good information that's legitimate information. So go to copyright.gov and learn how to file the 2-page copyright form. You don't need to pay a lawyer to do this. It's very straightforward. It's name, rank, serial number kind of information. And then you simply upload the piece of music as an MP3 file or the lyrics as a PDF or a doc file, and you upload payment of $65, and you can bulk together multiple works for one low filing fee. So, I think that if you go to register properly, you'll get all the protections that you're entitled to under the law. By the Copyright Act. And well, let me just say that, copyright is a very interesting concept. There have only been 3 or 4 iterations of copyright law in the history of our nation. The first one was actually in the Constitution. The Patents Clause is in the Constitution. The idea was that as the United States was formed and it broke away from the monarchies of Europe, England, France, Spain, etc., those monarchies existed where the king could grant a patent or grant a monopoly to one of the king's favorites and say, I like you, Colin, so I'm going to give you a monopoly on all the halibut that can be caught in the North Sea. And you got very wealthy as a result. And then you owed allegiance to the king as a result. And when the king called and said, hey, I have to go fight against some other country 6,000 miles away, I'll take 30 of your farmer workmen in the army, please. And you have to send the workers and send the money to the king. So that was the deal. And, so we wanted to break away from that. We didn't want a king telling us who could or could not be wealthy as a result of their creativity. We wanted to protect the people who founded this nation, wanted to protect and encourage creators and encourage technological and scientific advancement. And so they created a system whereby if you created something, you were granted a patent, and it's in the Constitution. And you got the right for a certain period of time to have the ability to make duplicates of that and to earn money from your invention. And that sort of helped us rocket ahead in terms of the growth and the commerce of this nation. And then things stayed that way till 1909. Then there was the first Copyright Act. It was finally updated in 1967, and then again a couple of years ago. So we've only had about 4 iterations of this law in the history of our nation, but it's a very important law because it encourages people to create, and it protects those people who create by granting them an exclusive basket of rights in the works that they create, one of which is to control how that work is duplicated. Another is to monetize that work. That hasn't changed. And so understanding how copyright functions and why it's good for you and how you can turn that idea into dollars, I think is the most powerful tool that any musician or songwriter or artist can have, because it allows you to not only create and to be creative, but it also allows you to earn a living from your creations. And it doesn't relegate your artistic creations to being your second job or your nighttime side hustle. Instead, you can be legitimately earning money and making a living being a creator. That's why this system exists. And that's why I think it's so important to protect it. And that's why I'm proud that the Copyright Office has made a decision not to accept copyright filings from machines. Long answer to a short question, but I hope it answers.
No, it definitely answers our because it's something that we talk about often. We talk about, these type of protections. We tell people, copyright your music. It's something that we talk about, registering your songs, making sure that you can monetize your songs correctly, and making sure that you do have the right protections. And, there's nothing worse than when I see in some of the comments from folks that, hey, you can just email it to yourself, or you can just, you can mail it to yourself. And this is not, this is not what we're recommending to artists and musicians out here to, we want to make sure that you're protecting your music as best as you can. And, I'm just glad that you were able to kind of reiterate that, and hopefully the listeners are really paying attention to that. As we talk about monetization, what's your thoughts on, Spotify's new streaming model that's coming up, where you need 1,000 streams to qualify a song for royalties? What's your thoughts on what's happening with that?
First of all, let's just look at the value of these companies and the value of the owners of those companies. Think about the Daniel X and the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musks and the Bill Gates of the world, the Jeff Bezos is, the people that create these platforms. They're brilliant people. They're really, really smart and really creative. And they're paid very well for their brilliance. But they make their money on the backs of the creators whose creations they need in order to power their websites or their systems. And I think there's an inherent imbalance in wealth as a result of that. I think the music industry as a whole really missed the boat when it came to digital downloading 20 years ago, 25 years ago, back in the mid 90s when this all was, they could have started digital streaming in the mid 90s. They could have done burn your own CDs in the mid 90s, and the music industry fought against that. I think that was a big mistake, because then by the time 2000 came along and Napster was born, it nearly drove the music industry off the cliff. And it was really, really bad for a couple of years as a result. I think that the Spotify business model of not paying a musician until 1,000 or whatever number of streams are generated is inherently unfair. I think that if one stream is performed, you ought to earn a micro penny or something, because without that one stream, people would have less reason to go to Spotify. Spotify makes its money from its customers going to enjoy the music that other customers have posted. It's a very interesting way to do business. If you think about Spotify or YouTube, these are businesses that have zero inventory. Just about any other business has a warehouse filled with goods, and they need to put the goods onto the shelves. People come buy the goods. This business has no inventory. The inventory is supplied by the customers. And other people pay to put advertising so the customers can see the advertising while they're viewing other folks' inventories. So it's an incredibly efficient business model because there's no warehouse necessary, which I think is brilliant. But on the other hand, I think it's really unfair in the way that it treats those who supply the power that runs those companies. And the power is the art. The power is the content that people come to enjoy when they go to these sites. So on the one hand, I don't think it's reasonable or fair to have a certain threshold number of spins in order to earn a penny. On the other hand, let's be realistic about this. 99% of the music that's released is not profitable. And that may be because it's not very good. It may be because it's not very commercial, and it may be for other reasons. But 99% of what's out there is not profitable. And 99% of the music or the art, the content that's out there is probably not going to be consumed 100 years from now. Okay, only a few things will really last. Record companies used to be the filters for this, and they used to have talent scouts, A&R people who would determine who was worthy of national attention or international attention. That's kind of gone by the wayside as we move into this new world of crowdsourced popularity. And I think what we see is that on the one hand, there's a flattening out of the ability of all of us to have our music heard or have our art viewed. But on the other hand, the removal of that filter has caused a general devaluation of all of the stuff that's out there. Yep. And so, what I think of these companies, Spotify or others of their ilk, is let's wait for a few years to see if that company even survives. I mean, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the big, maybe there was a different company that was a big deal. I remember in 1997 or so where, AOL was the big internet company, and then MySpace came along, and that was a big deal. And then, where is MySpace now? And is AOL just for old people? I don't know. All I can tell you is that technology moves very quickly. And I'm willing to bet you that all of the top platforms today will not be around 5 years from now. I'm willing to say that for the most part, only a few of them will survive, and their significance will not be as great because they'll be replaced by something else. That's the nature of the beast. As artists, our job is to utilize whatever distribution system is available to us to make sure that our art reaches the most possible eyes and ears. And if that's Spotify today, so be it. If it's MySpace yesterday, so be it. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow? Who would have imagined 20 years ago that the main way people consume music is a cellular phone rather than a radio? But that's what it is today. I just don't know whether it'll be tomorrow. We, in the law, have to try to keep up with the speed of the advancements in technology, and the law never does that. The law's always lagging behind. And so, when I look at a Spotify or any company, I think about what they're doing that's good for the world, what they're doing that's not so good for the world, and whether or not their business model will last. And the odds are against them, and they just laid off a bunch of people. Maybe it's to make the owners more profits. Maybe it's for other reasons. I don't know. We'll see who lasts, and we'll see who survives, and we'll see who's popular a few years from now. They're going to do whatever they need to do to keep their business profitable and to make their money. That's their reason for existence, and I don't begrudge them
that. I think what you're going to see, and I see a lot of artists talking about it now, is they're doing direct to consumer. The new thing that folks are doing is they're saying basically, I have a piece of art, pay what you want. And now what they're doing is they're using that model so that they have control of the customer data, so that they know what the
that's a very important point. That data, that word you use is a very important word, because a lot of these companies, these computer companies in all different businesses, they're not really after you, they're after your data.
Yeah.
Okay. And why do they want your data? Well, because it's demographics. If I understand who's coming to my platform, and I can explain it's a young person, it's an older person, they have this much annual income, they live in this kind of neighborhood, it makes it much easier for me to sell advertising time or promotional endorsement time to other companies aiming to sell their products to the same demographic customer base. Yeah. So getting the data of the customer is really, really important. And it's more important than getting the music, is learning about the customer themselves. And a lot of these companies are fighting over your data. And that's why you see when you sign up for all these different platforms, they all are battling with each other. They want to be your main place that you go. We want to be your web browser. We want to be your main music outlet, et cetera. And so your direct customer is a great idea as long as you don't have to sacrifice your data to get there.
Right. And
your customers' data to get there. And for those of us who were selling to these customers, I always say to a client or a potential client, hey, listen, can you explain to me, describe to me your core customer? Who is he or she? Where is he or she? What are they like? What do they don't like? What do they do? What do they not do? And a lot of people have trouble saying that and understanding that. I represented an artist who unfortunately was murdered, passed away about a year ago, named P&B Rock. And when I first met P&B Rock and his team, I thought his fans were primarily male, African-American, and in their 20s. And he invited me to one of his concerts. And I went to the concert, and I was astonished to see it was primarily filled with teenage girls. Yep. And they were primarily Latino and African-American, but they weren't necessarily the fans that I thought were going to be there. And I was very, very surprised. And I learned a whole lot in one night just looking at his audience. And then I understood how the record company planned to market him. And I understood, how he could be successful. And so understanding your customer base is really important, and holding the data to yourself and using that data to learn how to enrich yourself and how to expand your customer base is really important. So I think that anybody, whether they're going direct to consumer or they're going through another company, you need to understand who your customers are and who your clientele is in order to be successful in our business. And the best artists understand that. Think about Madonna or Lady Gaga and how they cultivated their fan bases, and they know exactly how to speak to those fan bases. Taylor Swift's another great example. with the Swifties fans and how
Yeah.
she can do things to cultivate those fans. Another one is the what's the band that has the Juggalos as their fan base? It's Insane Clown Posse. That's the group, Insane Clown Posse. You know, they've got a certain core fan, and they do shows and tours aimed at that fan. And if you understand that, you can have a long, long career in this business without ever needing to sign a contract to make the deal with the devil, as they say, or sign with a major record company.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we continue to drive home, like, you know, making sure that you're setting up your own ecosystem, making sure you're setting up your own website, making sure that you have lead capture situations going on, making sure that you're able to see what kind of data it is, trading free items for the data, right? So that you can actually have the data so that you can market directly to your customer through email lists and so forth and so on.
It's the old fashioned, you know, come to my band, come to the merch booth, and I'll give you a sticker if you sign up for the mailing list. It's no different.
It's no different. But now it's becoming more prevalent. Artists are starting to wake up and starting to realize, okay, how can I really, you know, own my customer data? Let me understand who's doing what and making sure that you know your demographic. So it's something that we've been trying to drive and tell our you know, our listeners that for a while, so that they can really understand, like, you know, the music industry is changing. You definitely need to be able to pivot. You need to have the information for your fans, so you know exactly what you need to do to grow your community as best as you can. I have maybe just one final question for you before we kind of let you out of here.
Okay.
But, you know, the way that things are happening in the music industry right now, in terms of, you know, the way the deals are being structured, sometimes you see the situation, which is the untimely death of like P&B Rock, the violence. What do you think of the mental state of the current industry right now, as far as how do artists protect their mental health? And dealing with this industry that has highs and lows, and, you know, as an artist ourselves, and, you know, being through the highs of certain situations and dealing with when it's low, and, you know, being able to have that kind of grounded thought, you know, making sure that you're being able to really keep yourself grounded when everything is not going the way you want it to go. Do you have any thoughts on that, or how artists can manage their mental health when they're dealing with it?
I do. It's a really good point that you're making. I'm glad that you told me, because although it's not new to have mental health challenges in our industry, it's only recently that people have been willing to come out of the shadows and talk about it out loud, in person and in public. This is an industry where it's very cruel, it's very harsh, and it's not really about you, it's about your success. And you could be a wonderful person, make a lot of hits, and the day that you stop making hits is the day they say, there's the door, don't let it hit you on the way out. And so it can be very cruel kind of a business. And a lot of people, their ego and their well-being is bound up in their success of their chosen profession. So I think that the most important thing people could do is understand that, you know, what is our job as musicians, as entertainers? Our job is to entertain the public. Our job is to take the emotion of what this piece of music or art is about and translate it to the audience in a way that they understand that emotion. And that's true in a recording session. That's true in a concert setting. And speaking about the emotions of each piece of music, understanding what they're about, allows us to look within and say, okay, you know, I'm not well. Why am I not well? I think that there is a mental health crisis in our country, and there's a mental health crisis in the entertainment industry, but it's nothing new. Unfortunately, it's just out in the open. What can we do? Well, first of all, if you see somebody who's in trouble, you need to say something and do something and go directly at them. I'll give you two examples. I have a client, well-known rap star, been around for a long time, and we're friends, not just lawyer-client, but we're actually buddies. And I spoke with him on the phone a couple of years ago, and he didn't sound well. And I said, what's the matter? And he explained that, you know, he was feeling down in the dumps, you know, basically depression and all that, and feeling the same kind of stresses and strains that you're alluding to here, Colin. And I said, well, have you considered, like, do you want to hurt yourself? And he said, yeah, I might. And I said, okay. I said, was the middle of the afternoon on a Monday or Tuesday, and I was at the office. I said, all right, what I want you to do to this gentleman was I told him that I want him to take just a small overnight suitcase and put a change of clothes and underwear and a toothpaste and toothbrush into the bag, and don't go anywhere, don't do anything, and I'll be there. And, how long is it going to take me to get to your place? 20 minutes. I said, I'll be there in 10. Right. And I took him to the hospital and put him in rehab and got him the help he needed. And then another time, I had a client who called me who had just gotten out of being locked up in jail for the night because he got in a fight in a bar while he was on tour in Wyoming or Idaho or somewhere. And this is a mild-mannered guy, a classical musician. Like, what are you doing getting into a fight? Well, we were drinking in this bar. We did this, we did that. And I said to him just on the phone, I said, do you think you have a problem with alcohol? And it stopped him cold right there. And he said, nobody ever said that to me, ever. And Bernie, I think the answer is yes. I said, okay, that's all right. You've admitted it. Let's get you some help. And we got him some help. And he went into a program and he's been fine ever since. So point I'm making is that whether or not it's today, yesterday, or 10 years from now, if you encounter somebody who you think has some problems, you need to say something to them or to everyone close to them and to help them get help and get better. And as long as you can speak openly with somebody and there's no stigma in it, then I think you can do good for someone and straighten them out before things get real bad and they hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. And so just paying attention to other people and understanding them and then saying something when you notice something is really important. There are programs that don't cost them money. There are plenty of places folks can go for help, and they just need to be willing to go. There's no shame in having a mental health problem. If you think about it, everybody in everybody's family, there's somebody who's troubled. Yep. And if you think your problems are bad, talk to somebody else, hear what their problems are, and then you'll take your own problems back any day of the week. And so I think that this is a business that's very harsh and very cruel, and it takes a long time to succeed, and success isn't always what you think it's going to be. Part of that is understanding that you should not expect to become a millionaire in the business if you want to write a song. What I try to tell people is don't expect that, but if you can aim for just making a living and making this your job and not having to do something else to support your music habit, that's success, okay? And so having realistic goals and understanding when you're achieving those goals is really important. And so, yeah, there is a need for mental health assistance in our nation. There's not enough out there, but it is out there, and one just needs to take advantage of that. So yeah, it's a tough situation. Even organizations like the Grammy organization, the Recording Academy, they have Music Cares, and that's their foundation that's in charge of helping musicians in need. And mental health is a part of what that organization does. They do dental care. They do, other things. If there's, after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, Music Cares said, we don't want to just give money to the musicians. We want to help them earn money. So rather than give money to musicians who lost everything in the storm, they gave them a new saxophone or a new keyboard, which allowed them to go out and make a living, right? And that's how you have to think about this stuff in a holistic, larger sense. I think it's quite important. And let me also say, while we're on the subject, that, there's no shame in getting out of this industry. If you think that you've been in it a long time and it's just not doing it for you, or you've lost your vim and vigor and you've lost your zest for going on the stage, that's okay. You can be a record producer. You could be a songwriter. You could be a manager. You could be an agent. You can help other people without having to go out there and face those stresses each day. A lot of people who have mental health troubles are the performers because they've got stage fright and they've got other issues that causes them mental health difficulties. And part of removing that mental health problem is removing the behavior that's causing them to have the problem. So if it's stage fright, then maybe not going on the stage is helpful and go be a studio musician instead. So there are ways to adapt without having to leave entirely. And that's my point. Okay. So think about what what's bothering me? Is it playing the gigs, or is it going on the road to play the gigs? Is there too much temptation when I'm on the tour bus to take another drink or have another smoke? Is that the problem? And if that's the case, then don't go on the tour bus. Stay at home and be a studio musician or produce records for other people where you can control your environment. So I think you have to sort of take a step back and take a look at yourself and your life and figure out what it is that's bothering you. And maybe you can do that on your own. Maybe you need a professional to help you, but it's very important to have that self-inspection to figure out what it is that's the cause of all this. That's causing me this trouble and discomfort.
No one wants to release the perceived glam and glitz of it all.
Yeah, it's true. It's really fun. And there's nothing more rewarding, because I've seen it from the stage when I'm playing and it's a song I've written and people are dancing. And there's nothing more fulfilling having people sing your lyrics back to you, or pay money to hear you do your thing when you're just having fun, whether you're throwing a ball through a hoop or you're playing the guitar or whatever. It's really amazing. And those who have never done it just don't understand how great that is, to be in a group that's playing and entertaining folks and to be on the stage. Because the best seat in the house, in my opinion, isn't the front row, it's on the stage, right? That's the best seat. Right? So, but all that being said, there are times when you have to understand that it's not really the most important thing in my life, but it's really fun. And there are other things that are more important to me that I'd like to be able to do. And it might mean sacrificing that few moments of joy in order to have days and days of satisfaction and contentment.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate that information. And I hope that our listeners are really paying attention to that. Do you have any additional resources that artists should be looking at before I, let you go?
Okay. I think that there are lots and lots of books that people can read. There's I'm looking back at my library here. There's the Musician's Business and Legal Guide, This Business of Music, Music, Money, and Success by the Braybeck brothers. There's, books that have been written by, lots and lots of smart people out there in our industry. I think that, there's plenty of good information out there. And there is a store in the Philadelphia area where I'm from called Sims. And their advertising jingle, I love. It's an educated consumer is our best customer. And I think the same way about my clients. I encourage people to learn about our industry and to learn how things work, because it's easier for me to do my job to help draft and negotiate deals on behalf of my clients if the clients understand the main deal points that we're haggling over and what's important to them and what's not. And so I think that whether or not it's taking a course online or in person, or reading a book, or surrounding yourself with people more knowledgeable than you must continue to learn. And I encourage everybody who's watching and listening to this to be a lifelong learner and to read the kind of books that you and Mike have written, and in order to learn more about how our industry works mechanically day to day, how you get a copyright, or what are the sources of revenue. It used to be a dollars business. Now this is a pennies business. And our revenues are broken up and balkanized into all these different little streams here, there, and everywhere. So understanding how to get a few pennies here and a few pennies there, and how this works versus how that works, those pennies add up to dollars. Mm-hmm. And if you know the system and you know how it works, you can function within it and you can gather those pennies and they will turn into dollars. So yes, there are lots of resources that are available out there, but you need to dedicate yourself to learning them. And as a lawyer, I didn't just finish law school, pass the bar exam, and then open the doors, and I'm a lawyer now, and I'm working with the same knowledge I had 38 years ago. No, I continue to go to classes. I continue to read books. I continue to read industry trade journals. And every day I'm reading and talking to people and asking questions and learning from them. It's a lifelong pursuit, and I will never learn all that I need to know in order to be as good as I want to be at this. But I keep trying. That's why they call it the practice of law. I keep practicing at it. I'll never be the bass player I want to be, but I keep practicing, right? And someday maybe I'll be adequate. So I think that your viewers and listeners, I encourage you to surround yourselves with people who may not be smarter, but they certainly have more experience or know more than you. That's number one. And number two is learn yourself. Don't just rely on others. Learn yourself, buy the books, read the books, and stay up to date on things. And more importantly than somebody's work in a book from 2 years ago is, read the trade journals, follow the industry magazines, and learn what's happening day by day, week by week, because that's more current than any book you'll ever read. And you'll be able to see trends as they develop and understand whether it's good for you or not good for you to participate in that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Resnick.
Thanks for having me.
Bernie, where can folks find you if they want to find you, if they want some help?
Oh, it's my name, BernardResnick.com. It's BernardResnick.com is our firm website. There's more information about Sally and me on the website than you can shake a stick at. And it also has items that we've written that are available for download for free. If you want to learn more about artist-manager relationships or music publishing, we've written chapters on those subjects, and they're available on the website. And also all of our contact information is there as well. If you'd like to submit a demo for consideration, we never charge anything to listen to people's music. There's a demo submission form on the site. So all those kinds of things are there. So BernardResnick.com is where to find us. We work very hard, but we also do listen to every piece of music that is submitted. So it takes us a minute. So be patient. If you submit something, it may take a few weeks before we get to hear it.
Bernie, as always, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And if you have more questions, or if anybody out there has a question, feel free to, send me an email or give me a call, and I'll do my best to try to answer. And if I don't know, I won't make it up. I'll just tell you where I think you can go to find out the answer, because I don't know everything. I'm man enough to admit what I don't know. So
I appreciate you. And for those again, I'll leave the information in the description. But until next time, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Rock on, Arkatech Beatz. All right, see you later.
Thank you, sir.
All right, bye.
Arkatech Beatz.